Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the November 6, 2018 Ask the Experts webinar. This one should be interesting for a couple of reasons. One is that I'm the expert, semi-expert, maybe. We'll see how it goes. And secondly, I may have issues with a small dog yapping in the background at some point, so please bear with me. As always, welcome. If you do have any questions as we go along, please type them into the questions box and I will get to them. I try to answer as many questions as I can. We're going to go for about 30 minutes as we usually do. And once the webinar is over, then we will post the recording on the First Canada YouTube channel, and then we will post the location. If you don't know where that is, we'll post that location in our First Canada Facebook page when we get to that point. It's an interesting session. I discovered some stuff by accident a little bit earlier this year, so hopefully it's not going to be too new to you, that you might have seen some of the stuff in anticipation of the webinar and you might have stuff to add that I'm not aware of either. So without further ado, I'm going to get started. I guess the things I want to talk about this evening are these four things, these four pieces of software that you may or may not know. So as it explains here, well, it doesn't explain it, but it says it. Hopefully there's an explanation that comes along in a few minutes. The current season of Power Up, the IDE, the Integrated Development Environment, where you type your code in Java or C++, is Eclipse. And as I'm pointing out today, if you go online, you'll see that WPI, Worcester Polytechnical Institute, that provides the libraries for sensors and motor controllers and so forth, they are no longer supporting Eclipse. They've made a change to go to VS Code, which is Virtual Studio Code. And we'll see that in just a second. The second one has been around much longer. It's Tableau. It's a stats analysis software package that comes free, and that you'll see, you won't see it, but your mentors, if you're a mentor, you will see that you have a free license for that when the kit of parts drops on January the 5th. And at the same time, you will get access so that your students can do 3D design, so you get licenses, student licenses that you can access in your virtual kit of parts for SolidWorks, for PTC Creo, and I'm not sure which one it's going to be this year, but one of the Autodesk packages. And lastly, coming out of Autodesk in Portland, in conjunction with co-op students or interns from FRC teams in the Northwest, there is an FRC simulation software package called AutoDesk Synthesis that you can access, and it's free and it's available right now, as is VS Code. So here we go. So as I've mentioned, VS Code is the new FRC control system software. It's from Microsoft. It replaces Eclipse. This link will take you to a page that provides more information. We'll take a look at that in a second. Some of the information they provide is it's a free, lightweight platform, and there's a good reason why that's nice. For those of us that have tried to download Eclipse and the plugins and so forth for the last few years, it takes quite a while to do that. To do this one from having nothing on your laptop that relates to FRC, you can do that and get a sample program running and built and deployed to your RoboRio in 3 hours or less. And I was convinced that I had done something wrong, so I did it on 3 different computers to make sure that it was actually doing that, and it did it every time. So 3 hours or less to get it all set up and ready to go. And as the documentation is going to say, it's the only one that is being supported right now. So when you go to that link, it's going to take you to this location, which is the FRC 2019 beta. They're saying there's an alpha test and there's information about that. So I'm going to take a look at this for a second. And it's got some information about what they're doing and why they're doing it. And I tried to have it all open up, but here we go. So it gives you some information, and the key one is this first one where it says it's going to replace Eclipse. That doesn't mean that you can't use Eclipse, and because I know some people are trying to use non-supported software packages like Python. I don't know how successful that's been, but there's some Python groups that are trying to do that. But it gives you some information of why they're doing what they're doing. And then the part that I did want to mention is that here are the screen steps. We've seen that before. You can see up here it says screenstepslive.com is the site. And if you recall doing Eclipse, Eclipse takes a whole lot more steps than this does. So if you've seen that, if you've loaded that before, if you've had a team in the past, you'll have noticed that it does take quite a long time. I know when we were doing quick builds at Crescent, and one of the first things that's being done is downloading the update for the software to do Eclipse and the program in Java or C++. It takes quite a while. And for those of you that don't know, the third supported programming language is LabVIEW, which is National Instruments' own language, and they're the ones that provide the RoboRio, and it works well with that, but it's a completely different style of coding. Anyways, this is what it looks like when you're in the Visual Studio Codes. This is a test I did. It's for those of you that may not know, it's a command-based program with commands, and it's got subsystems, as you can see down here, commands and subsystems. If we were in Eclipse, one of the things that we would do is we would try to build this by going up to a run menu, but there's actually several ways to do it. So you create your classes, and here I have a couple up here that go with this, and they're just the sample ones. So I just built a sample. It doesn't really do much, if anything. But I was just trying to see how long it would take to get everything set up, and then also to try out and see what it was like to deploy and to build. So there's actually several ways to do it. The most obvious one is down here where it says build. If I right click on that, it'll have build robot code, which you would click on. It would build the code, so then you could deploy it. It would be made into a format that was going to work on your RoboRio. And then down here, you would then go to deploy robot code, and away you go. It's on your RoboRio, and you're driving your robot. So originally, I have to be honest, I was kind of cursing when I saw that it was going to change. But when I went in here and actually tried it, and how much easier it was from Eclipse to do this VS Code to get it all set up and going, I was very happy to see that that's what it was going to do. So it is available right now. So you can go right in, and again, essentially you're going to put in, you can search screen steps 2019 FRC 2019, and it'll take you right to here. What you can see up here is where the link is, and the URL, and I'll post that in the Facebook page too, so you have access to that. But it is in this link. So when you go here, you'll see it. When you go to learn more, it'll take you right to that spot. So that's a big one. For those of us that have done FRC, we know that doing the code is huge for us. And part of it is that many of us don't get the robot built in time to really test our code as much as we would like, although that would be a great idea. But this may help in that regard. You certainly can set up a lot of laptops to have your students practice this and try this out. And again, you can try it out from the season, and you'll see if you go to this link, one of the steps I didn't look at too long, but talks about importing programs that you've already made, so you can test out ones that you already have in this one and see if you can deploy it to your robot before the season even starts. Now, Tableau. Tableau is a tool that's provided free to teams by Tableau, and it is typically used for scouting. So when we click on this link, it'll take us, and I've already set up the link so that I don't have to do that in case my internet doesn't work very fast. So they're already set up, but it's free for teams, and there's a short, if you search it and if you go into YouTube, there's a short videos. I don't know how well this is going to play. I'm not going to play it for very long anyways, but just to give you an idea. Okay, that's really all I wanted to do. But essentially, the idea is that you would create, you would have your scouters provide you with information, and it can be in a database, it could be in a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet, for example. And then you would convert the data so that you could see it visually to give you an idea of what the other robots on the field. So the idea behind the scouting, obviously, is that we want to be able to, if we're a picking team or we're going to get picked and then we're going to consult with that team that picked us to pick a third team for our lines, we would want to make sure that we have robots that are complementary to the robots that we have already on our team, already on our alliance for the playoffs. And that's going to help you do that. If you have lots of people on your team, that's the idea behind it. So the Tableau essentially then is used to aggregate all the data that you've got. Hopefully you've got good data and you're making good choices. That video that we were just looking at, that this link will take you to, actually is quite good and explains exactly how to get started. It's relatively easy to do, and certainly it would be a big benefit. So if you're a rookie listening and you're thinking, what on earth is the scouting that you're talking about? So essentially, I guess in broadest terms, what would happen is that your team would be competing, and every time a match is being played, whether you're in it or not, you have people in the stands that are somehow taking down stats about those teams that are playing. And let's say you have a ton of kids. In the best possible scenario, you have one student watching one robot in every match. So you've got 6 kids doing it for every match, and they're taking down this data. And then you've got students that are going through the pits and talking to teams to talk to them about what their robot can and cannot do. And I guess the reason for scouting is that I always use the example because I coached a lot of basketball, and I'd walk in the gym for the first practice. And back in the day, I was actually coaching before they had a 3-point line, and I remember having to tape it down on the floor before they were officially on floors and painting them. But you go into the gym when we had 3-point shooting lines, and you say, okay, who can shoot a 3-point shot? And all these kids would have put up their hand, and I'd be thinking that they meant that they could shoot a 3-point shot, that they had done it. They had done it successfully, repeatedly. But a lot of times the kid was thinking, yeah, I walked into the gym one time and I threw the ball over the back of my head and I scored a basket. And that's meaning I can shoot 3-point shots. So for example, in this year's season, you might have gotten teams that told you, yeah, you should pick us for your alliance because our robot can climb. We do that really well. And then you check the scouting and you find out that they actually never did that successfully in any one of their 12 matches at that district event. But they can do it. But now they can do it. So you want to be careful of that. And that's what scouting allows you to do. And sometimes you're in a rush trying to get this stuff done. And the idea behind Tableau for scouting is that it's going to let you visualize the data. So it's not just numbers appearing on the screen. You saw the bar charts that they would have in the various ways that they would do that. And while most of the data we would hope would be quantitative, like how many points they scored and so forth. And if you're a rookie and you're saying, well, won't FRC keep track of that at an event, or won't the host track that? They'll track the points that are scored by that alliance that's competing, but not the individual team. So somehow you may wish to have that information. And one of the things, if you haven't done that before, is you should talk to the teams that are going to be at your event. If you've got a rookie team of, say, 10 kids and you know you don't have enough to scout, and make alliances with people who would generously share their scouting information for you. So it's been used. You'll see that that video is not from last year, but from a couple of years back. So it's been used for a while. So Tableau for scouting, free software from Tableau. Those videos will show you enough that you need to know to be able to get yourself started. One of the things about the software that is provided through your dashboard on January the 5th is that if you don't access it, the license runs out. You can't go in now and say, oh, I want to access that. If you try to do that, you'll see that you no longer have access to those things that you got on January the 5th if you didn't take advantage of them then. And most of them will run out just before January the 5th, so that it would be a new license that you would be getting. But again, as always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. So one of the areas that is very important to teams is one of the things, again, just a little more background about me, some stories, is that the last 25 years I taught computer science. And one of our big problems every time I gave an assignment about let's write a program that does whatever, is there would be some students that immediately start coding. They have no plan. They have no idea what's going to be next, what's first, what's the order they should do things, and they're just coding because that's what computer science was to them. And we do have teams that as soon as they see the challenge, they want to take the parts out, they want to start cutting stuff, they want to start, oh, we have to make our chassis this big, we've got to make some cuts, da 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 da. And what I think all the teams that are on the call that are veterans or have been involved as mentors, they would say that that's probably not the best way to go. First of all, you're going to brainstorm, and eventually you're going to get to the point where you've come up with an idea for a design, and the best idea would be, instead of starting to cut things and find out that they didn't work, is to try to design in some kind of 3D design software. So in your virtual kit of parts on January the 5th, you will get the option of downloading any one of SolidWorks, PTC Creo, and Autodesk. Now, I'm saying this even though I don't know if it's true, because I do not know what is coming in the kit of parts. I don't know what the software is. I don't know what the motors are. I don't know what the game pieces are going to be that we get. I don't know anything about it. But I would presume, since it's been this way for the last few years, that it would be similar. So SolidWorks, these are licenses for students so they can take them, put them on their machines at home. There are lots of tutorials on how to use SolidWorks. You can just search SolidWorks for FRC in YouTube and you will find them. There are lots of adults that know how to do it and can mentor students. And there are often veteran teams that will be happy to help rookie teams with it. I guess just like choosing the programming language for programming your robot, some of the choices are based on, the experience that someone may already have with that package. So, for example, if you're in Oakville or around that area and say, oh, I'd like to do SolidWorks. I don't really know. I wonder if anybody does it. Well, 1334 and 1374 at Oakville Trafalgar, they do SolidWorks, and they could give you an idea as to why they use it and why it makes sense for them. 4001, the lead mentor there, Bob, He had a background with Creo, so he used PTC Creo. One of the things I'll mention about that is that PTC, as a result of that, was sponsoring that team for a few years as well. So that's, mostly last year, I think they were sponsoring American teams, but they used to do that for 4001 of the Thornhill. And Autodesk is another package that's used. The advantage, well, there's lots of advantages. I'm sure other people on the webinar tonight could mention some of them, but a couple of them are, you have access to the FRC parts library, so you'll have the chassis that is shipped to most of the teams that have taken it. The different wheels, they'll have motors and motor controllers and so forth. So when you're creating your robot design in 3D, you will be able to, you don't have to create all the parts yourself. You can bring parts in from the library that comes with it. Another big advantage, if you've used it before, is that you can test some parts of it. For example, let's say that you had arms and they were going to reach out to suck in a cube from this past year, and there are rules about how long, how far outside of your frame you could go, and you had some device that you designed in 3D, and say in SolidWorks. It would then give you an idea when you tried to reach out and sort of move and articulate those arms, whether you were going too far, whether the bumper was getting in the way, not allowing you to pick up the cube, and it would give you some idea. So in addition to prototyping, you can use that as a way to do some testing, some simple testing before you actually get to the point of cutting metal and building stuff for that as you go along. So if you do have questions, just ask them as we go along. So, and since I'm by myself today, I'm just going to take them as we go. So we have a question from Michael Carriero, and he wonders, the data that's compiled and presented in Tableau, does it have the ability to be exported and printed? I think it does. I think the idea behind it, though, is that because it's done in the program Tableau, you can do all sorts of, make all sorts of decisions, all sorts of what ifs, and where the data changes, it can be sorted in different ways, it can be combined. So printing it's maybe not the best use of it, but I'm sure that that is one of the things it can do. It's mainly for, what ifs. What if we pick, who are our choices going through the different scenarios? So to be able to do some sorts and make some decisions and so forth is probably its biggest strength at that, and it's going to be visual. So you can see the data and the bar charts, or however you decide to display your data. So just to finish off then on the 3D design, one of the other things that you can do, well, it's not listed down here, is because the parts are coming to you from the parts library, they do have some characteristics. So for example, like the weight. So one of the questions we always get every year is, let's say the robot rules say that your robot for this year has to be 120 pounds or less, and you're having difficulty finding a scale to do that, to see, how much you have left and how much weight it is right now. You can get a rough idea of the weight from the parts that are in it. There is a way to do that. So that gives you some idea. Most teams find the way to weigh it and try to be well under 120 pounds in case they actually have to do something. Add something in that they thought they didn't need, or they see something at an event and they say, oh, we should be doing that too for their second event, and they can make some changes. The other one, the second last point here, is you can send the robot models to an FRC simulation software, which is what we're also going to talk about briefly today, called AutoDesk Synthesis. And lastly, and there's more reasons for doing this than this. If you've got a lot of students, you want them to have something to do, and that's a great skill to learn, is 3D design. But one of the aspects of it is that you definitely should design before building. especially if you're a new team and you don't have a lot of spare parts and you don't have a lot of aluminum lying around, or if you cut something and then because you thought you read the rules correctly, but you didn't. That goes in hand with this, of course, is that everybody involved, drivers, designers, builders, anybody, they should be reading the rules and making sure they understand them. And part of that is the rules sometimes change, they get updated, and it may be because the rule's not clear and you're thinking it's this way and it's not. So you want to also keep that in mind when you're doing this, that if you can wait for a couple of days before you actually start cutting stuff, it might be to your benefit in the long term. So AutoDesk Synthesis is a program that was created by Autodesk out of their office in Portland with the teams in the Northwest. And you can download it right now. There's updated versions. So the version 4.2.0.0 came out, I think, in late August. And it allows you to do stuff that you'd be surprised. If you've seen some of the virtual robotics toolkit for the EV3 for the first LEGO League, it's somewhat similar. Anyways, and there's people constantly working on it, which is great. It's free. You can download it right now. You can actually use, if you've done your models in 3D, you can bring that in. There are tutorials available, and they go through how to do everything, how to bring a model in, how to convert it before you do that, all sorts of things. So they claim they're selling points, although they're not selling it, but the advantages are it allows you to do strategic design. You can test your code, and you can do driver practice. So before I take a look at it, this is what the field looks like. So this one is this is the field from last year. There I'm okay. I don't know how smooth this is going to be, but there I'm driving the robot with the arrow keys. I'm turning the robot, banging into the wall, driving it back, and so forth. So you can actually, I'm using my desktop, but you can connect it to a laptop just the way you do it at your driver station, and you could run it. Now, you see there's all sorts of options up here for different things that you're going to do. You can change the way you view it. For example, let's see how. See, we'll do the overview, so just so it's a little bit easier to see. So you can see it, and you can drive your robot. Maybe this is how you see the field. I know when I did a lot of basketball and hockey, that's how I pictured the field and the ice from above, but that was just kind of me. But anyways, so you can do a bunch of things such as testing. You can actually import 6 robots and compete. I can change the robot. So there's a bunch of robots that they've put in just to do it. So and they're not necessarily for this particular game. One of the things that will happen if this works, this might take up a little bit too much computing power, so it may not work too well on the screen as it has obviously done. So I'm going to just throw it off to the side for now. So, and of course there it's ready to go now. But so you can go, and I'm going to just escape here and go back and show you where it is. So this is the landing page for Autodesk Synthesis, and it's got an overview. This is the tutorial page as I was just mentioning. It's got a place where you can download. There's a video that talks about it. I'm going to run out of time today, so I'm not going to play that. But the link to this one is available on the First Robotics Canada website. You can see that it's listed under CAN code, or it's listed under resources, probably in a couple places. So one of the questions was, and I guess I know I'm speaking back in teacher mode because I'm fine I'm speaking quickly because I keep looking at the clock and seeing how much time, but one of the questions that we just had from Nicholas was, can you import robots? So yeah, you can import robots. So for example, here's where it talks about the different things that you can do. And then when you go to the tutorial, so for example, they call it exporting robots, but it'll go through and it'll say, okay, here's how you get your robot from your robot CAD files into this one. So yeah, you can test your robot. So when you're testing your robot, maybe I'm scrolling too fast here, but what you're going to see is they have some options for you. For example, you can see if you're going to, where would be a really good place for you to put a camera on your robot, because it'll show you from within the game what you're seeing on your screen. So you can say, oh, I think the camera should go up here. Oh no, the arm's going to be in the way. I'm not going to see what I need to see. So there's a whole bunch of options there for you to try. So the one thing I would tell you, maybe the last thing I would tell you about this would be that you have to take a look and find out what the specs are, because as I found out, so this is running off my desktop and it runs beautifully, but I have a really good graphics card for this particular desktop I'm using, but none of the laptops, and I have a few, can run it. They just don't have a good enough graphics card in it. And when you try to download it, you'll see that it'll tell you right away if that the laptop or computer you're trying to download it on is capable of doing that. Now, I know you'll see at some place it has stuff about forums and so forth. There are people who will answer your questions if you have questions to ask them about how they do this. They were so excited to hear that I was going to talk about it in Ontario. So that's the other thing. Is there, like all the other people in FIRST throughout the world, they're very happy to help out to provide you with some information as you go along. But like I say, just to go back, there are other things that you can do with it, and it's the tutorials are great, and you'll hear when you listen to them that they're definitely students that have put this together, but they're great and they're enthusiastic and they're the ones that did the work, so that's why it's really good for them to do that. I guess as I'm running out of time, I'll tell you that next week we're going to have the first of our three groups that are going to talk, two groups that are going to talk about their robot in 3 days. This was a group next week that's going to talk to us about the one that they did in Hamilton last year. If you're a rookie team and you don't understand what that means, what happens on January the 5th is there's groups throughout North America of university students or older who are missing the fun of building a robot in 6 weeks. So they're going to build the robot to play that game that we're going to see, Deep Space. They're going to try to do that in 3 days. So there could be up to 5 groups doing that in Ontario, when 2 years ago we had none, which is great. One of the things that comes out of that is they'll do a lot of prototyping. They'll have an idea, and you'll say, oh, that was our idea. And they'll prototype it and they'll realize that doesn't work. So that's one of the best parts about it. We're going to talk to these groups and see what they're going to do is going to support teams in FIRST. There was one group in the United States that created all sorts of different ones, and they shared all their coding and their CAD with a team in Scarborough, so that was great. A young team, so they got benefits out of that. There's a group in Quebec that does one called Robot in 100 Hours, en français, and which is great. If your team is 6331 from the Windsor area and it's a French language school, you might want to peek in on that one at some point. There are a couple of groups that usually do it out in Calgary, and many in the United States. So they'll have live streams, they'll make promotional videos and reveals and all sorts of stuff. So it's a great fun thing to do if you have the time to do that. And again, your students will love that, so you might want to talk to them about that. In any case, hopefully you've enjoyed that today. If you do have any questions, and sometimes the questions don't occur to you till after this is over, or you may watch this with somebody else later on and say, oh yeah, I wanted to ask that, but I forgot at the time because that Keenan guy was talking too fast and showing too many things. If you do have that, if that is a thing that you realize after the fact is that you have something you want to ask, please feel free to contact me at this email. I'd be happy to answer your questions. And as I always say, since I'm getting on in years, if you don't hear back from me in 24 hours, I've forgotten, so email me again. And before we go, I'll mention, since I talked about Monique's team a little bit, Monique is a mentor of 6331 that I mentioned. They were a rookie all-star from 2 years ago. One of the things I said to Monique and the other rookies is, if you have any question at any point, contact me. That's the job that I do, is talk to rookies. I mean, you can contact me if you're not a rookie as well, but you will never annoy me by asking me questions. The reason why I sort of insist on that is that a lot of times the information that comes out from FIRST and FIRST Canada is so much, it's so overwhelming that sometimes you'll miss a key point and you'll say, oh, we missed out on that. So I will be sending things out to all the rookies along the way to remind them of certain key things and key dates. But if you have any questions from any of the communication you get, if you want to know anything at all, I may not know all the answers. I'm not that knowledgeable in terms of being an expert on everything, but I can find the answer for you. I'll know who to ask if I don't know the answer. So please feel free to ask at any point. I'm happy to talk to you. And if you're not, Monique's point, her last point was that she's going to have all the kids watch the thing because they may have some questions. And by all means, whether the students come on the Tuesdays and listen and ask questions, or they watch the videos and they ask questions, if they want to email me, that's fine. Let them email. Sometimes it's better to go through directly with the student that has the question rather than through the mentor and then to me and then back to you and then to them. So if they have any questions there, I'm happy to talk to the students as well. So again, thanks for joining us this week. The video will be posted shortly on YouTube. And again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. And if you're an expert and you have something that you want to present on our Ask the Experts webinar one of these weeks, please let me know and I'd be happy to include you. And thanks and good night.